Thank you. Tonight, we are going to discuss a lot of things. We're going to discuss Amendment 64, how it's affecting our businesses, the transition process, and kind of what we're going to be looking at in this huge change that we're going to be facing here pretty soon. So today, we have a wonderful elite panel of industry experts here to walk us through these questions. So, Christian, with that, I will give you the opening microphone to let us know a little bit about what Amendment 64 is and what's going on right now just in our industry in general.
So we won by, it's now 55.08% is what we have. We got 1.337 million votes. That's a wow. 55,210 more votes than Barack Obama got. That's 483,000 more votes than Michael Bennet got. That's 422,000 more votes than Governor Hickenlooper got. We won Adams County, Denver County, Arapahoe County, Jeffco, Weld, all of them by large margins with the exception of Weld, which we only won 50%. Larimer County, we brought medical back, and we have 55.3% support for Amendment 64. There's a mandate up there. Medical marijuana will be coming back with the help of many people at this table and in this room, I'm sure. Anyone who says to you guys that Amendment 20 did not authorize dispensaries or infused products companies, or anyone that says to you guys that like this law is designed to keep this out of the hands of 21-year-old snowboarders, they now have been proved wrong by a 10% margin in our state. So every one of you guys should keep your heads high and walk and say, we did this and we have a mandate now. I love law enforcement's role to a certain extent in this industry, and it's nice that it's just a very certain extent. They can do everything that they want to do, but their time of messing with you guys because they think you're bad people for supporting marijuana reform for everyone 21 and over is over. We've seen headlines across the world over the past couple weeks, England, India, Japan, Brazil. There's a bill introduced in Mexico to legalize marijuana. There has been statements by the new president of Mexico that they need to reevaluate the drug war. Major things are happening. In the United States, we have several states, Maine, Rhode Island, Iowa, that are introducing bills in their legislatures to legalize marijuana for adults 21 and over. There's the bipartisan bill in Congress that I mentioned. There's also a sign-on letter that's being signed by a lot of people. We also have some other Republicans and very conservative, prominent conservatives that are working on things right now. The former U.S. attorney is calling for a change in our marijuana laws, the same U.S. attorney who I've sat on panels with and spit venom at over the past 5 years, and he's moving in a different direction. Most importantly, and the thing that made me feel best about the last 3 years of work that we've done is that in Denver, in Boulder, in Mesa County, the DAs have said that they will no longer prosecute any of the cases they have pending. And in case there's anyone in here who's not a patient, I assume many are patients in here, but if anyone in here is not a patient, you can proudly possess your marijuana knowing that no cop in Denver is going to come and cite you or do anything else to you for possessing marijuana because those days are over.
Thank you, Christian. Okay, next we're going to ask Rob Corey, what freedoms do we have here now with Amendment 64? What is your take here on this freedom of passing of the new law here?
Well, this, first of all, is a lot better than it was even advertised. I've prepared a one-page summary of what you can do right now with Amendment 64. Obviously, there are many other summaries. Chief, the one that has to deal with the transition from MMCs over to recreational Amendment 64 shops. Is that readable? That is tough to see, isn't it?
Yeah, can we see this?
Is there a way to
That's a
grow?
lawyer's slide.
This is
the
one
size
page.
the file was.
This is one page, and you'll see, and I'll explain why one page is good for you. But if you can't see it, that's all right. I'll run through it very quickly, and I do have extra copies here. What this does for you, and I've broken up into a couple different categories. All right, and this is all immediate rights that you get. I would argue right now, and apparently the DAs of Boulder, Denver, and a few other places agree with me that it's already in effect. The governor is procrastinating like a stoner, and he's not signing the proclamation yet. And there's no reason for him to procrastinate. Absolutely no reason. He has no decision to make. He must sign this thing, and he will sign it. I'm hoping he does it tomorrow, but we'll see whether he procrastinates a little more. So what this does, and I'm sorry about the smallness of it here. I should have planned that out better. First and foremost, accessories, paraphernalia, and grow equipment are legal without any limits whatsoever. No limits, including federal. Colorado is now the international leader of producing and selling grow equipment and paraphernalia because it's legal even under federal law, and here's why. And I cite this in the summary. 21 U.S. Code section 863 subsection F1 explicitly exempts under the federal prohibition of grow equipment any equipment that is permitted under any local or state law. Obviously, grow equipment and paraphernalia are permitted without limit. There's no limit to the quantity you can produce, sell. So Colorado has just made itself the international leader of grow equipment sales, which is a beautiful thing in a lot of ways. All right, secondly, marijuana itself. And you don't have to continue this fiction of, I'm selling you these lights for tomatoes. That lie is over. And the Russians do say that lies are the first casualty of war, and this war is over, so that lie doesn't have to continue anymore, which is a wonderful thing. All right, growing, processing, and transporting plants. Amendment 64, which I'm starting to call Colorado Constitution, Article 18, Section 16. It's not technically Amendment 64, it's the Colorado Constitution. And it says you can have 6 marijuana plants, 3 or fewer being mature flowering plants. And the kicker is the possession of marijuana produced by the plants. Think about that. All right, has anyone heard about this 6-plant, 2-ounce conundrum? I'm sure there are a few people that have gotten caught up in that from time to time. I've heard about that in a few cases here and there. Well, that's over too, because this explicitly says you can have whatever those 3 mature flowering plants produce. Pretty nice, huh? And what is the guidance there? I think probably the best piece of guidance for what a plant produces is probably the United States Drug Enforcement Administration, don't you think? They're the federal agency. They've studied this. And the DEA says in the publication called Cannabis Yields, United States DEA, published way back in June 1992, the DEA says, and they've never rescinded this publication, that the estimated yield is 5.1 pounds per marijuana plant. For one, I'm taking the DEA at its word. The DEA would not lie to the American people. So when the DEA says, and back in 1992, somebody told me that the technology has gotten better since 1992 on growing. So 5.1 pounds per plant is a conservative estimate. So that gives each adult 15.3 pounds. And I'm not making this up. That is the DEA's own numbers. And this is in my summary that you should post in your grows that you're going to be building if they haven't already been built. All right, and it gets better. It gets better. All right, the DEA estimates that a growth cycle is 30 to 90 days. Okay, that's what they say. That is what they say. All those press releases, here's a little aside. All those press releases when they would, seize a few garbage bags full of trash, stems, and they would, put out a press release. This is $3.3 billion in street value. Well, all that stuff comes back to haunt them now, and it'll be interesting. Now, Amendment 64, there is no requirement that the marijuana you have from previous growth cycles be destroyed or otherwise disposed of. It explicitly lets you store the products of those plants on the premises. All right? So, if you don't use those 15.3 pounds from your first cycle, you can store that there. There is no prohibition whatsoever. And this is a constitutional right. This is not a statutory tweak. This is in our supreme law. There's a lot we can do with this. Next category, and this will make a lot of people happy, the concentrate, manufacture, derivative, preparation, all the edibles, the tinctures, those types of things. Remember the days when they would weigh a tray of brownies and they say, well, this is 2 pounds of brownies. Therefore, patient, you've got 2 pounds of marijuana here. And there was, I will admit, a slight amount of support for that prosecutorial view, because the law did say if you mix marijuana with something, then the whole weight of it has to be counted. I mean, we usually won that argument, but we had to have that argument. We don't even have to have that argument anymore, because Article 18, Section 16 says the weight limit of any concentrate or marijuana product does not include the weight of any other ingredient combined with the marijuana. So they have to weigh the actual part of the brownies, not just all the flour and sugar and all the other ingredients that go into I don't know how they weigh that, but perhaps you'll have the recipes right there to show them what that goes in. Consumption. Here's a big one. Here's a big one, and this one is way better than advertised, all right? It says you can't have consumption openly and publicly, and it does say and, so it's open and public consumption still remains prohibited, just like alcohol, if you think about it. Technically, you can't walk down the 16th Street Mall with your open beer. We get that. Technically, you can't walk down the 16th Street Mall smoking a joint. But what you can do is have private consumption. What is private? Home, private club, private location. This place where we sit right now, I would argue, is private. Invite only. You were invited here, you're here. This is private. Now, of course, Castleman's can produce its own policies, and we should certainly respect whatever policies any private property owner creates. But the point is, you could have an Amsterdam-style private membership coffee shop the day the governor signs this. I figured you'd like that one. There will be people getting on airplanes from Amsterdam flying to Colorado to use their marijuana legally, publicly. It's going to be a beautiful thing. It's going to be a beautiful thing. All right, industrial hemp. Here is a huge thing that really nobody talked about during the campaign, and this may be the most exciting aspect of this, because the Declaration of Independence is written on hemp, as we all know. So we're getting America back, ladies and gentlemen. We're taking our country back. And the Constitution now says that any plant with a under 0.3% THC content is not marijuana. It's not even marijuana. And so that means there are no limits whatsoever on industrial hemp. As long as it has 0.3% or less THC concentration, it is a crop like anything else. Wheat, roses, you name it. Zero restrictions. It's not even marijuana, so you don't get into, I have to be a 21-year-old adult, I have to grow it in a private enclosed. It's not even that. It's not even close to that. It's a crop, a beneficial industrial crop that could be grown on acres and acres throughout eastern Colorado the day the governor signs this proclamation. Now, I should take that back. The day he signs this proclamation is going to be December or January, so the growing season, the planting season will be a little bit after that, but you can certainly make your arrangements. And the very best I'll save for last, which is this. There is a constitutional right in here. You can't read it, I'm sorry about that, but there's a constitutional right to assist another adult in any of the things I just talked about. All right? What does that mean? That means you can assist another 21-year-old growing those 6 plants. That means you can assist another 100 21-year-olds growing those 6 plants. All right? Now, don't believe me, You can go as your authority to the Denver Post, November 16th, 2012, where somebody was quoted who knows what he's talking about. And that's Sergeant Jim Gearhart of the North Metro Drug Task Force.
He doesn't know what he's
All
talking
right?
about.
Here's a direct quote, and I'm going to read this from Sergeant Jim Gearhart because the man has his faults, but he knows what he's talking about this time. Quote, "There's nothing that prohibits 100 people from each combining each of their 6 plants in one grow facility. It's just how many 21-year-olds or older you have claiming the plants. You do not even have to be a resident of the state or of the U.S. Jim Gearhart. He's been on American Weeds. He must know what he's talking about. And he comes in and tells us that. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a defense, an ironclad defense. If you get your 100 adults together, and I've designed an assistance agreement. It's very brief, 1 page, and I've got copies of those. We'll project that up there in a bit. That will give you that opportunity. So I've got so much more to say, and I'll just stop now, but this is so exciting. It's kept me awake.
Now wait.
In conclusion, I had a baby on November 1st. This beautiful little girl named Juliet, and the excitement of 64, I'm going to be honest with you, has kept me more awake than this newborn baby has. It's that good, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. Shawn, do you want to say something quick?
Rob Corey is a hero in this movement. He deserves all of our appreciation and respect for what he's done. But I got to say that there's some of us attorneys that give different kind of advice. I say everything that Rob Corey just said to my clients, but I also say that's the riskiest place you can be. And it is true that you could grow for 100 people, and it is true that you can keep the resulting harvest of every harvest, and in a year from now you might have 60 pounds, and I would walk into court and say, you're innocent, these charges have to be dismissed. But my point is, you've got to decide what level of risk you want in this world. And the first person that steps out and says, you know what, I got 10,000 people who told me to grow for them. That sounds to me like a federal case. And I'm not telling you not to go do that, because, you know, if you do and you get busted, Rob and I are going to make a lot of money. But I'm telling you that you ought to consider how aggressive you want to be on those issues. And I also want to remind you that all this optimism, just like optimism with 1280 or with medical marijuana and dispensaries, got a big wet blanket when regulations came in. And all the things he just said, while true today, in 6 months may not be true at all, because they may walk right in and put a limit on how many people you can grow for. They may walk right in and put a boundary on how many harvests you can have. So again, I agree with Rob with what he's saying today, but those are exactly the abuses that the feds and the state are going to be looking at as reasons maybe not to allow this. And I really want to call on people to remember that part of what's going to allow this system to go forward is responsible behavior. And the first person that has 10,000... The first person that has 1,000 or 10,000 people they're growing for and the feds call it out, it may crumble the system. So while I want you to be aggressive and assertive with what you're doing, you also need to be smart. And I really don't think it's smart to go out there and blow it up. And actually what Rob said about hemp, I'm not sure that's true. I mean, you know, you need to sit down with Rob. I encourage you to do that, but sit down with some of the rest of us. I mean, you need good advice from every angle, because if you're going to be the first head on the chopping block, you might want to make sure you got an ironclad necklace on.